million in equal pay claims. The Conservative mayor says it raises concerns about the way the Labour-led council has been run. All new spending, with the exception of vital services and the protection of vulnerable people, will stop immediately. More onshore wind farms are expected to be built as a result of new rules announced by the government. Projects supported by local people will be approved more quickly, and communities will also have a greater say in how developments are considered. The new rules come amid fears of a backbench rebellion, and they represent a U-turn from Rishi Sunak, who in October said he intended to continue with a ban on new onshore farms. Shadow Climate Secretary Ed Miliband says the ban has exacerbated the cost of living crisis.
The government is being held to ransom by a bunch of Tory backbenchers who since 2015 have stopped onshore wind being built in England. And that has raised bills for families by £180 for every family in Britain. We're going through a cost of living crisis. Surely now those individuals, those Conservative MPs can see that it's much better to have onshore wind built and cut bills for families.
The Schools Minister says the government's been very proactive in dealing with the concrete crisis and has been issuing guidance since 2018. Speaking to GBNews, Nick Gibbs' comments come after Education Secretary Gillian Keegan apologised for using strong language while expressing her frustration at the situation. Both Ms Keegan and Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, are under growing pressure as more than 100 schools across the UK have fully or partially closed. Laughing gas is to become an illegal Class C substance by the end of the year. Those caught using nitrous oxide could face up to 2 years in prison and unlimited fines. Those caught dealing or producing it could be jailed for up to 14 years. It's part of a government pledge to tackle antisocial behaviour. And Cuba's government says it's uncovered a human trafficking network that's been recruiting its citizens to fight for Russia in Ukraine. The country's foreign ministry says nationals living in Cuba and Russia have already been incorporated into Moscow's military forces. Havana has close ties to Moscow, but has long denied any involvement in the war. In May, reports in Russia claimed a number of Cubans had signed up for Russia's armed forces in exchange for citizenship. Separately, the UK government has announced the Wagner group of mercenaries, which has been active in Ukraine, is to be prescribed as a terrorist organisation. This is GB News, live across the UK. That's it from me. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello, welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Joining me tonight, two top comedians that aren't Lewis Schaefer. They are Josh Howie and Cressida Wetton. Welcome. How are you?
You had fun last night, did you?
Oh, it was all fun and games until the illuminated signs came out.
Well, I just happened to have one way. No.
There was a great bit of slapstick that had been semi-rehearsed, but that didn't fully integrate with our attempts to actually get through the newspapers. But never mind, tonight I'm sure it's going to be a much more seamless integration, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
You've got a little bit of business with the mugs.
Well, we'll do the water pistols later.
OK. Let's take a look at the front pages. We have The Telegraph. Back to work drive shelved until 2025. The Times. Mentally ill to work from home in benefits revamp. The Sun. I've had my fill of holly. The iNews. NHS staff told to watch out for concrete danger signs. The Metro, what a fine mess. That is to do with sewage, I believe. And finally, the Daily Star, the great fool of China. Interesting. Those were your front pages. So we will start with the Telegraph. Josh.
Yes, back to work drive shelved until 2025. The government basically wants to reduce the billions that are spent on people who are not working for various reasons, including incontinence, not being able to leave their home and whatnot. And it looks like one of the ways they're going to do that is say, you just got to go to work anyway. But what they've done very cleverly is just go, you know what, let's just leave it to whoever gets into the next. Who might it be? We don't know.
So you think basically they don't want to have to take responsibility? You think it's going to be unpopular, and so they just don't want to be.
It's a point. It has to be done. Arguably, we're spending so much money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is leaving a poison chalice for Labour if they get it.
Yes, and they're saying even then a year as well, by the sound of it. So, I mean, there was another headline there as well, wasn't there, about the mentally ill and so on. There are an awful lot of different factors and so on, but it is basically people have just got into the habit of being at home during lockdown, right?
Yeah, but wouldn't people be working from home type jobs anyway if you couldn't do something else? I mean, aren't people doing that anyway?
Yeah, no, true.
If you've put your back out, you don't apply for bricklaying jobs, do you? There's other things.
Yeah, I mean,
those kind of jobs have all gone now anyway, haven't they?
I think we're all doing them, are we? But well, not us, because we're in here. But yeah, it's 26 billion, and that's 6 billion more in real terms than it was pre-pandemic. So something does have to be done, but it's going to be very unpopular.
Yeah. What about the gentleman there with his pink shorts? What's that all about?
Well, it's just, people can wear pink shorts nowadays.
Okay.
I know that seems
at home,
alien to anywhere.
Or in work.
He's actually incontinent. We haven't seen the after photo.
Somebody enjoying the weather. Okay.
This is there's going to be a heat wave, isn't there? But I don't know if that comes up on another page. But they're saying 32 degrees tomorrow. Anyway,
it's pretty good for that. But there is actually another big article that block under 13s or face huge fines, social media told. So this is the online safety bill that's been going on and on forever. I believe it's going to its final readings on Wednesday.
OK.
And one of the things that the government is seemingly very concerned about, and I think rightly so, is having these 8, 9, 10-year-olds on social media accounts, having TikTok and having whatnot. And essentially they could lose these social media companies, they can lose like 10% of their annual income, world income, if they don't comply. I think that children should not be on social media.
I find them annoying on social media. What do you think?
I think it's terrible for the kids.
You're talking about watching them.
Yeah.
But what a challenge now. If you're a 9-year-old, it's like, if you can now get a TikTok account, it's going to be all the more valuable, isn't it? So the naughtiest, most cunning children they'll have more status. So it's really a prize now.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Well, that will at least, force them to show a little bit of,
Initiative.
Exactly, which I think is good. They shouldn't just be low-hanging fruit for them all the time. You got the Times, Cressida, with, what is that, some sort of Destiny's Child reunion there, by the look of it.
I don't know about that.
That's our queen, the Duchess of Sussex, Queen of Hearts.
Yeah. Queen of Hearts, Meghan Markle, looking very glamorous. But the story we're looking at is mentally ill will be told to work from home in bid to cut benefits. So we've kind of covered that.
Same story, roughly.
Yeah, exactly. A lot more people are not working now.
2.5 million people claiming incapacity payments. That is extraordinary. I mean, it's no wonder our productivity is on the floor. But as you say, that's going to be all shelved until whichever government happens to step in.
Whoever that might be.
Energy discounts for customers who back local wind farms. That's like a straightforward bribe, is it?
Exactly.
And then there's the 32-degree, which I've got to tell you, I didn't sleep in the last couple of nights. It's just too hot, unpleasant. But it's never the right temperature, in my view. I have a very narrow band of acceptable temperatures I operate in.
The day that kids go back to school is when we're going to get a heat wave. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. OK, what have we got? We've got the Metro, Josh.
Again, slightly, this is a new angle on the crisis of sewage companies basically just dumping out their sewage. And what a fine mess is the headline.
Yeah.
And what they've been doing is, like, the argument goes that when it rains, there's overflow, and so there's been a lot of these instances, and our rivers and our beaches have become very polluted because of it. Now they found out that actually on some of the hottest days of the year, where there's no excuse, they don't have this overflow excuse because of water in the system, extra water from rainfall. They're just doing it because they just want to get rid of the stuff.
Right.
In which case, they're not doing their job as water companies. We pay our bills for them to treat the sewage.
One job.
Yeah, and they are literally going, you know what, let's just...
We keep hearing these hideous stories of people going for a swim in the heat and then getting really ill 2 days later, as if they've been to Glastonbury for a full weekend, just having a swim.
The worst, apparently, is in Scotland. That was one report I heard, which, I don't know, somehow feels even more wrong, somehow. Because it's like it's a big country, not heavily populated.
They're blaming England and Ireland for the...
Oh, we're sending our stuff up there, are we?
Hopefully.
Like I've seen some of those tankers going up the M1. I have heard of... I mean, we live in Hove. I have heard of a few people saying that this kind of stuff is actually starting to... anecdotally, people are starting to complain about having encountered it a bit. I don't know.
don't know it at the time, though, do they? Isn't this the problem, that you go in and
Yeah.
it all looks sparkly and lovely, and then you get sick?
Well, it doesn't look sparkly and lovely. That's why I don't go in anyway.
Oh, really?
to
I've
be
seen
honest,
you.
yeah.
I've seen you in the water. I've
Oh
seen
no, I do.
photos
You're
of you.
right. Yeah, no, I do. I share. I make my Insta.
For charity?
I don't put my head under. And Kevin Costner, Why I Quit Yellowstone. That sounds like it might be a sewage issue as well.
Supposedly it's a very good TV show. Everybody swears by it.
Well, it's a kind of weird woke Western, isn't it? Apparently, there's a picture of him sitting on a pickup truck that's always used as a way of kind of going, round here we tend to respect our trans folks.
Oh, really? I haven't
Yeah,
seen that
that's
one.
a
Okay,
kind
well,
of, I don't know, it's a
I'm
meme, but,
tuning
you
in.
know, you
Wow,
can't trust the
you
memes.
sold it to me.
Finally credited the Star, the Daily Star.
The
What have you
Daily
got there?
Star, the Great Fall of China. So this is the story about some workmen in China who decided they needed to get to work more quickly. So they made a larger hole in the Great Wall of China to get their digger through. And
Is
now...
that... Right, goodness, right, OK.
Well, this is it. I mean, when you look at the picture, it's not... I'm imagining a little digger-shaped hole just big enough for a couple of blokes in one
Like
of the touristy
when Tom and
bits.
Jerry run through a...
Exactly,
yeah, just
yes,
like exactly the right hole.
But it's not like that, and it turns out that the Great Wall of China is vast. I don't know if you knew that, and only small.
It's great.
It's great. Small sections of it are maintained and look nice for the tourists, and all the bits that look like what we think of as the Great Wall of China, they've all been rebuilt for the tourists.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Some people are saying,
So is that the hole, or is that a part
yeah,
of it that they've gone through?
So the point is that what they've gone through, it didn't even look like a wall. It looked like a mound of earth.
The
So they just didn't know.
great mound of China.
Well, I don't know if they knew,
But it's a bit like Hadrian's Wall, isn't it? When you go there, there's like a few stretches of decent pudding stone. There's large elements. It's just a ditch, really, or a sort of elevated mound.
Yeah.
But it is 700 years old, so the question is, should these guys be locked up and the key thrown away, or is it fine?
It's incredible, isn't it, that China could build that wall 700 years ago, and yet Donald Trump couldn't get his done with all the modern technology available to it. What's going on there? Deep state, that's what it was.
You're going to get some tweets sent to you afterwards.
And you want to talk? We're going to go about the No Malone later, aren't we? We'll save that for after the break. So
Save that.
I think we have an early break. We will go to our first commercial break a little bit earlier than planned, perhaps. But join us later. We have the Bad Knock Bounce. We have Creeping Crime. And it's a gas. See you in a couple of minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel,
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans. I am joined tonight by Josh Howie and Cressida Wettenham. We will kick off this section with the story which I would have expected to be on the front pages. I'll be honest with you, Josh, this feels like a much bigger story to me than bad beaches.
Absolutely, yeah. Birmingham City Council declares effective bankruptcy, which is different from other kind of bankruptcy. It's effective, it's not ineffective. Basically, what it means is that now they are only legally obliged to pay for the stuff that, like bins and the very basic services.
That's what makes it ineffective.
The stuff which they should have been focusing on all this time instead of whatever they've been wasting their money on, presumably.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have sympathy in local councils wasting their money, but the reason for them going over is because they paid about $1 billion so far back of an equal pay settlement from about 10 years ago, and they've still got about another 760 million to settle.
Oh my goodness! So that was a load of people, women presumably, who were
I mean, mostly because it was the types of jobs that women tend to do.
Yeah, but I mean, they
very well.
Men
very
don't,
well.
Yeah, but what I mean is, men don't tend to sue for equal pay. The presumption is that the women weren't getting equal pay with the men, rather than the other way around. I mean, I'm not. This is what I'm not saying that they were. But that's what it was, right?
And they weren't. They were. I don't believe they were getting the bonuses that men were getting.
Oh, OK.
That's part of it. Yeah. I mean, this is the problem, obviously, with women in the workplace, and Birmingham is suffering accordingly.
It does make you wonder whether there is, whether there isn't some kind of almost moral argument against historical settlements like that being able to just tip a city into a catastrophe like this. It doesn't seem to me...
I completely agree,
mean?
because surely now there's going to be more suffering women in the city that need access to, I don't know, whatever the council does. I mean, when do you draw a line under it? I don't know.
I don't know, but people... I mean, it was 10 years ago. Yeah. Those people arguably it was unfair. It
was, the court settled it, so I suppose it's not for us to... It just seems like a catastrophe. I don't know how they ever claw their way out of this.
Well, I think they declared that by now they can then save that money that they would be putting on these other things like libraries or whatever it is. It's terrible for the city. Yeah. It's obviously Birmingham's, it's a huge city. And
it's not alone, right? We've seen but this is the largest. We've seen Woking and Slough, places of that sort of size. Yeah. This seems to be, I don't know if you call it an epidemic, but there's definitely... Sometimes these things may be rambling on for some time until the news bothers to investigate them. I suppose they accumulate a certain mass and you start to recognise a pattern, but...
Definitely. God, but do you think, I mean, the things that they can still spend on, don't you think that's going to be really difficult to police within the council? Because if somebody comes to you with a good story... If you're the person writing the cheques, you'll still feel obliged to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not bankrupt. Like, if I were bankrupt, I'd be bankrupt,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know how they claw their way. I genuinely don't, because it's of such a vast sum. Unless Birmingham can start printing its own money, perhaps. Maybe that would be
the
one way
city has arguably changed a lot over the last sort of 10, 15 years. Yeah. I mean, it has become not as rubbish.
I haven't been there so much.
Yeah.
I used to go there a lot. The Glee was always a fun club,
know,
but Mr Egg has gone. That may be the problem.
And also,
remember Mr Egg?
Yeah, Mr Egg, it's a classic. I had many breakfasts.
Mr Egg.
Many breakfasts there. That's the start of the decline.
Cressida, the Times have identified the one Tory cabinet member whose popularity is bucking the downward trend. Is it the cat?
It's not the cat. It's Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch becomes Tory supporters' favourite minister. So she is absolutely smashing it. She's got a 59% approval rating, which is, I mean... Suella, for example, has got 21%. Rishi not doing so well, minus 3.8 points. So it looks like if they had an election for the leader of the party now, it would be her.
I mean, she was very popular during the last leadership election on this channel as well, but also just generally among the sort of most staunch supporters. She seems what they call sound, generally speaking.
So it's, the two big things are the trade deals that she's been involved in and the gender self-ID.
Yeah.
Put a stop to that. There's no more mixed toilets. Well, there are still here, but eventually we'll be able to wear flip-flops to the work toilets again, and it will be...
And she can think on her feet. She's pretty good at the box.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. She's a very effective communicator. She's got that quality in a politician where, as you say, she sounds sound. She sounds normal.
Yeah.
And she's very intelligent and knowledgeable. We don't know much about her economic policies necessarily and whatnot, and maybe that's why she didn't go all the way with the leadership election. But we'll see if she is the leader in waiting.
So I suppose the big question is if, which is not entirely covered by this story, but just while we're, I can conduct a small straw poll. If Sunak is utterly humiliated at the next general election, which is certainly possible, should he go? Would you expect him to go?
Yeah, 100%. He'd be gone in the first day or two. He'd announce this.
Would you agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'd come out and do a very quick...
I mean, he hasn't had it for long, has he? That's the only thing. I mean, I suppose but on the other hand, he did fight and launch a coup in order to get it.
I got it. Yeah. I mean, the fact that the Tory membership. I mean, it'd be interesting to see. First of all, if who the UK might actually vote for as a Tory leader, because we haven't had a chance yet. But I think that they messed up actually voting. But I think that if she'd had won that leadership election, I think she would have been really dangerous for Starmer.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Well, I mean, I think they should have just left Truss in charge, and that would have been better for me, certainly personally, in terms of tax liabilities. But also, I think it would have made more sense for Sunak, who could have then taken over after her crushing defeat and looked forward to building a party. I don't know why anyone would want it for 18 months, just knowing you were going to get slaughtered.
Well, I think maybe his ego, maybe he thinks he can turn it round. I mean, he's not... I feel sorry for the guy, because he isn't...
It's not over yet, anyway. The little pocket rocket may pull it off. You never know. Josh, Telegraph have news that shoplifting is no longer a crime. It's been downgraded to a sport. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you get a bit... It's not even a sport anymore because you don't have to run out.
No,
you can just grab the stuff and you can just saunter out.
Hobby, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the look of that.
Absolutely.
Shoplifting no longer seems a crime, says Asda chairman. This is on the back of last week we had Tesco chairman saying something very similar.
This is Stuart Rose. He's the Asda chairman now. He used to be M&S, didn't he?
M&S, yeah.
Yeah, so this is maybe him just encountering a different kind of shopping culture.
Yeah, exactly. You don't see it in M&S. Taking out those underwear. But yeah, this is a problem. This is because nowadays they've essentially decriminalised anything that's stolen less than £200.
Is that right?
What I saw someone doing.
Should we even be saying that on air? I don't know. Is that like we?
I feel like we have law-abiding viewership.
That's true.
But what someone did in America, I saw in a shop, is they made everything because they have a similar threshold of like 2,000. I think it's much higher, like $1,000 or something. They made everything $1,001.
Right.
Like everything is legally, but when you take it to the counter, you get a coupon for the discount,
right.
And that's how they've sort of got
how
around
they can force the police. But it's terrible. And you don't know whether it's just social media, but you see a lot of clips now on Twitter of people just literally stuffing bags, as you say, without zero guilt or panic or any expectation that they might be apprehended.
And it's putting up the prices for the rest of us, isn't it? I mean, obviously, in Marks and Spencer's, a couple of sandwiches are already £200, but...
not when I go in. 10 minutes to closing time. Yellow label kid.
But the other issue with it is it's the break-in. We had a story about it yesterday, about the breaking of the social contract.
Yeah.
When people feel like when they see these clips, when these people experience it, what's your point of investing in the system when people can just take what they want?
Absolutely. There's a lot of that, isn't there? I mean, you could say, again, like the small boats crossing the channel is, in numerical terms, is not a huge part of immigration, but that sense that, like, a fairly straightforward proposition, a border, is just being ignored.
And also the argument, unfairness. That's what people hate, I think, most of all in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as to sort it out, I would think arming your store detectors is probably the first. That's got to be the
one of the things they're doing is postal fines for anything under 2. I mean, can you imagine Mizzy saying, I can't come out robbing today, I've got to go and pay my postal fine? It's so soft.
Guardian now, Cressida, kids are better off in school. Even anxious kids give or take the old collapsing ceiling, obviously. Is that right?
That's right. Children with mild anxiety better off in school, says Chris Whitty. I think this is hilarious. He's telling people that if your kid has mild anxiety, that can be upsetting, but it could be a normal part of growing up. That's just school, isn't it? I was absolutely miserable for 7 years, and that's just how it is.
I think kids have learned... I don't know whether this... I might be callous here, but I think they've learned a few of these mental health terms and they're starting to weaponise them. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I've got anxiety.
Well, I completely agree, but on top of that, if you do have legit anxiety, the worst thing you can do is sit at home in a fetal ball.
Don't feed it. Don't feed it. Keep it happy.
But I think it's a bit rich coming from Chris Whitty. Why are they anxious?
Yes.
Because you spent a couple of years telling them that they're going to be killing their grandparents if they learn.
I have... my wife has a good friend who has a son who was always a little bit kind of... I don't want to, misuse the term, but OCD, always washing his hands, a bit anxious about germs and so on, and she was always going, it's fine, you don't need to. And then suddenly this comes along, right, wash your hands, and spiralled off the... I don't know what we do about this
now. He's telling parents it's OK to go to school with mild respiratory illnesses as well.
Right.
Which, I mean...
Yes.
Yes, it always was. You know, so that's the latest hot advice.
Handkerchiefs and tissues and maybe a towel over a bowl of what's the stuff called?
If you're lucky,
methylated. Exactly. Oh well, hopefully they can overcome this. Speaking of inhalations, we've got only by the end of the year to investigate the beneficial. I've never tried this stuff. It's perfectly
this
legal.
is the one thing I've ever tried because let me read the headline. Nitrous oxide will be banned by the end of the year. Laughing gas become a legal Class C substance. It's the only. I've never tried a cigarette. I've never done anything, but. When my friend had a baby, like a home birth, they were left over with a canister of this.
This sounds like an enormously confabulated backstory.
And then
I tripped over, went head first into the home birthing bath.
And I had to try it out as she gave birth.
Oh, yes.
No, but I was like, I'm going to try it.
So that's not gas and air. That's not the same stuff, is it? When they do that?
Are you telling me I'm not a drug addict?
I don't think you.
I thought I was so cool.
Have you tried it?
Yes,
you see these at Glastonbury, these piles of little silver capsules.
I tried it so long ago. We had no idea it was ever going to be an illegal drug. It was just something you had at university, and nobody thought anything of it. It was just this funny thing. And nowhere in this article does it really sell me any serious consequences of the drug.
There are very. I'll tell you where they used to use it. There was a guy called William James. Have you heard of him? William James. He was the brother of Henry James, the novelist, and he was a very significant sort of philosopher and I guess sort of proto-psychiatrist, psychologist. He wrote about things like the varieties of religious experience and so on. And he was quite interested in the states that people entered into under the... this was before LSD and so on, but the various altered states that you could have through drugs. And at that time, nitrous oxide was considered, one of the more interesting things to investigate. And people would emerge from it sometimes having had a sense that they had quite a religious experience, but they were unable to explain it. And on one occasion, I think it was him, he took the stuff and he was absolutely determined to write down any kind of epiphany, any great insight he had, and he did so. And then when he recovered, he retrieved his notebook and he had written down, I think I got this right, something like, the smell of turpentine prevails.
Still
and he'd been convinced this was...
that's when you write a joke in the middle of the night, you wake up and you write, this is the best joke ever, and you wake up in the morning, you're like, what? Tea bags, what? But the funny thing is that they're saying is that they're going to be testing for it, and I have no idea how you're going to test for laughing gas.
No.
Just sort of show one of my sets, and if you don't laugh, then you're safe.
I've got no idea, but I think there's going to be a lot of kids enrolling in catering college now, isn't it? It's like the...
Is that a legitimate use for it?
There's a couple
what
of
is it? Puff-up pastry or something?
No, it makes whipped cream. How do you not know this?
Really?
Oh, wow.
Mr. Whippy.
It's the stuff that goes in... Yes.
You're giving yourself away there, Cressida.
Yeah, I was at university 20 years ago and it was no big deal.
I remember when we used to have to sniff glue and now it's just whipping cream. It's amazing. The kids these days don't know they're born. There was something I had some other... Yes, I had a dream once and I wrote a joke down and it did actually get used. I'm going to tell you what the joke was.
Okay.
It was in the context of a comedy radio play and it was about a rather... like a Homer Simpson, but in Mexico or like South America.
Homer Simpson!
Yeah, and you remember at school, they'd had a Guess the Capital of Peru stall at the Fete and he had come second with Mexico City.
This was it. What's going on?
I love that joke. Guess the capital of Peru. Not know it, but guess it. That was my favourite bit. Anyway, that's all for part 2. Join us in part 3.
I just got it.
No, vegan roast. You get the whipped cream out. Rainbow laces, burglary gnomes. It's all coming up. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours, some of us will have a bit of low cloud and fog overnight, but then it's the return of the hot sunshine tomorrow, albeit with the chance of a few showers. Looking at the big picture, and you can see high pressure dominating the weather across the UK, but we are going to have something of an easterly wind pushing its way in, and on that easterly, we're going to drag in some low cloud, some sea fog in from the North Sea, affecting eastern parts of England and also eastern Scotland, where we're likely to see a little bit of drizzly rain overnight. Elsewhere, further south and west, clear skies, a few pockets of mist and fog though, and temperatures not dropping a huge amount. Some places staying above 20 Celsius tonight, a tropical night for some, but a difficult night for sleeping. A cloudy start then down the eastern side of the UK on Wednesday, but that low cloud, that murk, is going to quite quickly burn back towards the coast for most of us. I say for most because across eastern parts of Scotland we're likely to hold on to some of that low cloud. Otherwise, lots of sunshine around, but perhaps a bit cloudier for some, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland. Look at those temperatures though, a little bit higher than today, likely to see highs around 32 or 33 Celsius. Into Thursday, and there's the chance of some heavy thundery showers making their way northwards up the western side of the UK. More central and eastern parts of the country are likely to stay drier and sunnier, and temperatures are going to be similar to tomorrow, really. Again, likely to see highs of 32 or 33 before something perhaps cooler by the weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. So the Mail now, Cressida and the RSPCA are accused of cooking the books when it comes to Sunday roasts.
Certainly are. The RSPCA are deluding themselves. Fury of meat-loving Brits after their survey claimed nearly 6 in 10 are ditching roast beef dinners for plant-based alternatives as charity is accused of cooking stats. So the Daily Mail are very upset about this. They refer to furious Britons, but they don't say which ones. There's been
any Briton that's been made aware of the facts.
But you'd think from that headline that there'd been another counter-study, but there's no mention of it. So the RSPCA and somebody else called the Social Market Foundation have done some research, and it turns out that Brits are trying to reduce their meat consumption.
But when they say, I mean, I do think there is a certain amount of manipulation of data by charities lately in order to steer agenda, certainly, but I haven't encountered this one. But when they talk about roasts, that sounds to me like, are they trying to say people are just not always having a Sunday roast, or they're having a plant-based? Because that's a slightly different thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of mention of the plant-based products.
Yeah, but they're not saying roast. And the other thing is, and they're using it, as you said at the beginning, the RSPs are deluding themselves. In quotation marks, but it doesn't say who said that. Yes. It's ridiculous. But no, as you said, it's slightly open-ended questions here. Yeah. So when they say that some 58% of people would be supportive of government subsidies to help cut the cost, well, I'm sure most people would like cheaper food if the government would help them out with that.
This is it. How did they do this survey? Has somebody come up to you in the street and said, do you think cows should have a horrible time? No. One of the questions, how did this happen?
They're saying the RSPCA, they've taken 60%, roughly 58%, have taken steps to eliminate or reduce their own meat consumption. Yeah. That is very different from saying we no longer have a Sunday roast.
Absolutely.
That might very easily be just like we no longer have like bacon for breakfast.
But also taking steps could be like, just even thinking about it is enough, or replacing one meal. That doesn't show overall some great big trend. Also, when you see a lot of these food companies that their inflated value, these vegan products, and actually now they're closing them down because people aren't buying them because they're too expensive.
I know a couple of people who invested heavily in the kind of lab-grown meat projects of the last few years and lost a lot of money. And,
they'll be the furious Britons.
They may be the furious Britons.
But that's
and
another product, isn't it?
But the RSPCA, obviously the RSPCA, their concern is with the factory farming element, you know, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with the RSPCA that there are concerns about the treatment of animals, but of course that's a subtly different thing again to the idea that decent meat that grows, you know, that eats pasture and lives a decent life, and then one day the axe comes down, you know.
Completely, and apparently lots of people would like to see that on packaging as well.
Yes, what, an axe?
Yes,
well, but that's the thing is, people, of course, you want that, and you can sort of imagine that. Yeah. But when you're in the supermarket and you're going, well, this one's £5 and this one's £7 or £8 or more, you're like, oh well.
I've always felt bad because I know, I mean, this is a slightly specific issue, but I do know, for instance, that British farmers, I think pig farmers in particular, have signed up to considerably more spacious, you know, living quarters for pigs and so on than is the predominant in certain other, well, I think Denmark, which is famous for its, you know, its rashes and so on. And you would assume the Danes were quite an enlightened people, but apparently they don't treat their pigs very well. Anyway, I might get sued now. That's probably the one that will get me cancelled.
Not by me.
Over to the Telegraph now, Josh. Football hypocrisy news, and Jordan Henderson has found a new belief system.
Yes, money. Liverpool fans reject Jordan Henderson's LGBTQ+ apology. So it's the former Liverpool captain. He's going out to Saudi Arabia. He's been offered a load of dosh. Fair enough. Some footage was released by Saudi Arabia of him with his yellow armband, which is support for LGBT.
No, rainbow armband. They grayed it out.
Oh, I see. Well, and they basically, blurred it out, whatever. And a group called Three Lions Pride, which is a sort of pun on Pride and Three Lions and whatever, are basically saying that their members are going to turn their back on him, and he's to say, "Oh, I'm really sorry," and whatever, but I just don't think that's going to make a significant impact on his
He's
career.
made a sort of attempt at a little bit as like the oil on troubled waters, but he's not going to go.
Very vague. He said he wants to respect everyone. Pick a side. I mean, you're supposed to be a sportsman.
Losing the homosexuals in football. I'm sure there are many homosexuals who football fans. But I don't think it's quite the same as like annoying the theatre industry. Or whatever,
But also, I mean, there is a part of me thinks, oh, come on, Jordan Henderson, you must have already earned millions. You've been captain of one of Europe's greatest sides. But on the other hand, I suppose they've offered him so much money that he's setting up his family for intergenerational wealth now, isn't he?
He's saying it's all about his feelings. He didn't feel wanted and valued at the last place.
Yeah, so funny.
And then when the Saudis came in and offered some money for him, his team, his current team...
felt wanted.
They didn't say, no, we want to keep you. So he's kind of leaving with a slam door and...
Gut feeling, do you think he writes any of this stuff, or is it all just like...
I think he does.
I think so.
He needs help
because it's not very well written.
It's not very slick.
But it is really funny because he's saying, I just want to feel wanted, but really he just means I want money. And then they offered me this money, and then they didn't feel wanted, aka they didn't offer any more money.
Not the first person to like to see tokens of love and affection. If you really love me. Daily Mail, Cressida, and an unusually heartwarming story of forgiveness and reconciliation.
Yes, this is great. So Daily Mail, Boy in the Striped Pyjamas author John Boyne apologises to Father Ted creator Graham Linehan, saying he could have used his platform to support him, instead of adding to pile on in trans debate as Roisin Murphy appears to change writers' minds. So this is great. We've had a heartfelt apology. Graham Linehan has been absolutely gracious about it and said, thanks very much, appreciate that. Could the floodgates open? Because there are so many people who are locked into the trans ideology who probably... it's very difficult for anybody at this point, isn't it, to back out and say, do you know what, I've had a think and I'm not sure about this.
Particularly difficult for them to say so about Graham Linehan, who is not, he's further than J.K. Rowling or whatever, isn't he? Even though they both came from an equally loved place. And this is quite a complex story, which we probably don't have all the time to go into John Boyne's history, but apparently he wrote a book. I think he's written a novel, which is about a small boy who has a trans sibling. Is that and he is himself gay, so he's not just somebody who sort of dipped his toe in these waters. He's had quite a lot of dealings with it. It's interesting, as you say, that this Roisin Murphy case has I don't know, suddenly
brought it up because people can see she said a very reasonable thing about puberty blockers, which this country follows the guidelines now, and other European countries, Norway and whatnot. So the idea she said something controversial is ridiculous.
I mean, she said it in quite heated terms, but her attack was on Big Pharma, right?
Absolutely. But of course, the left, far left, they don't matter about these things. You either show 100% solidarity with the stuff, and in terms of, these poor kids, what they're going through and whatnot. I mean, I'm talking about in terms of them going on medication and their lives being medicalised for the rest of their life. But I read the letter. I know you read it because I saw you on Twitter. It was a very gracious, well-written letter, and it is great that people now. It's very brave for him for someone to first of all change their mind, or not brave, but shows intelligence, and also then to go,
specifically with Graham, as I say, because there's no one more toxic, and it would be wonderful if that could be just like the heat could be drawn out of that. And good luck to Roisin herself, of course. Josh, we go to Wales now with The Guardian, a very clever ploy involving everyone's favourite pun.
Yeah, well, this was
no security. What are we going to go for?
Very good. Well, this was also on the front of the Star, wasn't it? I think as well. Mystery toy gnomes, maybe burglary ploy. Welsh police warn. So people are just finding these in their gardens. They found a couple of guys kind of putting them out, and it's just a very clever way of basically, if those gnomes are still in the garden, then it might be an indication that no one's actually there. I personally think
one of those gnomes is actually wearing a balaclava, which I would. Oh no, they've done that.
It looks a bit racist. Is it blackface?
No,
it's balaclavas. They've all gone. Yeah,
they've done a house burglary.
Seems a bit racist.
God, no drugs, no burgling.
Yeah.
What you should do is dress the gnomes up. Right? I'm from the West Country. We have scarecrow dressing up festivals.
Okay.
So if you get a gnome to show that you are there and for a bit of fun, make the gnome an outfit. That's fine.
I see. I think personally, this is the gnomes using it as a ploy to get into people's houses.
But if I was... I mean, it depends what kind of village you lived in, I suppose, but if I saw a gnome and appeared in my front garden, I wouldn't move it necessarily. I would just wait and see what happened, whether it was going to be,
move
might
around.
even get a breeding pair. I don't know. Do you remember several years ago there was a thing where people would steal gnomes and then take them on holiday with them, and the note would start cropping up in Instagrams, or it would send you postcards and so on.
Yeah, from Amelie, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Oh, those were the days before Brexit. That's all for part 3. Join us in part 4 for UFOs, a ban on meaty language, and a look at the life of London's canal folk Cressida. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. And welcome back to Headliners. So we have the Metro now, Josh, and nearly 80 years on, Hiroshima could be looking to rebrand its tourist offer.
Yeah, atomic bomb site Hiroshima is now a UFO hotspot, new Pentagon map shows. So this is this new website that All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office has put out there, basically putting all of their information out there. And what has been discovered is that this area in Japan has got the most UFO sightings. Maybe it's because people are suffering from radiation poisoning and their flashes before their eyes or whatnot.
But they wouldn't be anymore, would they? I don't think so.
It was a joke.
Seriously, sorry, I know, but that's what I'm thinking. This is.
It was aliens. It was aliens.
Well, it's not exactly a joke, is it? Radiation poisoning, but it is.
Something witty.
It was drones, bird, reflections of light, aeroplanes, or insects. I think what happens is once a place gets a name for it, then people are more likely to. And also, they've got a museum about UFOs in the town and themed bus stops. So if you're into UFOs, this is your holiday destination.
I suppose there is also possibly a little bit of paranoia surrounding it. I quite like these new acronyms, the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, the UAP.
Yeah.
That's got a bit, because UFO feels very 50s to me.
But as opposed to the OAP, which is
that's
a bit slower. very easy to make
an obvious anonymous. Yeah. I think I'm going to use that one, and the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office as well. So Hiroshima was rebuilt and everything quite quickly, wasn't it? It's one of those great wonders that they came. I think about 10 years later. It's not like some kind of weird wasteland of.
Yeah, but it's interesting. But so it's that part of Japan, it's South Carolina, and also an area in Iraq and Syria. So I don't know what would link these three things, but I mean, a psychologist might argue that there's some sort of local mental phenomenon. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or it could be that there actually are aliens and they're visiting those three different regions.
So the Carolina, that's the ones where the cows and the anal probes, is it?
I hope so. That's why I'm going there next year. But I'm not sure about Iraq and Syria.
I've never heard of UFOs in Japan, though. This is interesting that they're catching up now. Guardian, Cressida, and one of the few areas in which one has to admit the French do things better than we do, I think.
OK. No more cordon bleu. French tries again to ban meaty language on vegetarian products. So you can't... here we have Linda McCartney burgers.
Yes.
As my friend used to say, I didn't think there'd be any of her left, which get called burgers and grills and things like that. Well, you can't do that in France. You can't call a veggie sausage a sausage. They don't want meaty words being used for non-meaty products, which is a very French...
Bacon.
Exactly.
I mean, I tend to agree with this. I mean, I think if you're going to just create a sort of, a mass of some sort of nut-based matter, that's what you should have to call it, nut-based matter. Half a kilo.
Are you bringing the trans debate?
I don't understand all the... I've never understood the craze for trying to recreate things like sausages, which are not actually a particular... It's no meaningful sort of...
Maybe because it just tricks the brain. If you're trying to kickstart, like, I guess with cigarettes, they created vapes, and they didn't necessarily have to do it to create the same sensation.
Meat cigarettes, that would be an issue.
But the idea that what they're saying is the government is like, oh, it's to stop people getting confused.
Yeah.
Like, come on, if it's a vegan sausage,
I thought
it's a
but
vegan.
there's so few vegetarians in France that they might actually not be that familiar with the concept, and they might just get it home and be very disappointed.
I mean, this was 10 years ago. The offer wasn't great in England, but I tried to go vegan in France once. I read a book which was so horrifically detailed about factory farming and what it involved that I was absolutely... We were on holiday in near Toulouse, and there was so little that you could eat that was vegetarian. It wasn't even full vegan. It was basically
wine,
it was just chips and wine. Yeah, exactly. So that didn't last very long. They may be getting better. North-South divide news now, Cressida, in the Mirror. It may be grim up north, but at least you can afford to drink it all fuzzy.
That's right. Real North-South divide shows huge difference in who is paying more for kebabs and beer, and you'll be stunned to hear that it's more expensive in London.
What?
I know. Apparently, in County Durham, you can get a pint for £2.65.
Yeah.
How good is that? Down here, it's £6.63 is a common price.
Even in, and I don't know whether this is a national thing, but even in Edinburgh during the festival, when you would think there might be a little bit of a dividend as well, the Wetherspoons on George Street, £3.11 for a decent pint as well, a Doom bar.
Very nice.
Okay.
Yeah, I was impressed by that.
I think the spoons here are pretty cheap as well, aren't they?
Hey?
I think the spoons here
spoons are pretty, you can't go wrong with the spoons. But there's my sponsor.
Don't order the pizza. That's my suggestion.
Nice.
It's not Italian pizza. It's not worth...
But kebabs are cheaper as well in Durham, is that right?
$5.50 in Durham, getting up to £13 or £14 down here.
What, for a kebab?
Apparently.
What?
In Greenwich?
A post pub, like, not a sit-down in a restaurant?
No, it's in the Mirror. It must be true. I don't know. I mean, my mum's from London.
No wonder the young people are angry. Finally, Daily Mail, Josh, although this is Cressida's wheelhouse, really, but we're in that point of the property cycle where the crazy kicks in.
No, this is like Cressida getting a Jewish story. I got fed up of costly London rent, so I moved into a narrowboat, and now I pay just £350 a month. I actually know quite a lot about this because I've asked Cressida loads of questions.
Right.
Like everybody does, she finds it incredibly boring and annoying, but you very patiently answered every single one of my questions.
Did I? That was good of me.
Yeah, it was very good of you.
This woman, I don't know her because we don't all know each other. She thinks...
like Jews.
It's just... OK, every now and again, these stories come out and everyone on the London Boaters Forum hates them because you wouldn't go up to a landlubber and say, what exactly are your bills? What do you pay for everything? And also,
how do you get rid of your poo?
Oh, it's brilliant. Love it. She reckons that you can buy coal for a month for 20 quid. I guess she's a very hardy breed. I couldn't do that. I couldn't.
It's her and her pug on this boat, apparently.
Yeah, he features quite heavily in this article.
That's right.
Apparently he makes her feel safe.
I
He's
think the
only little.
photogenic pug probably got her the gig, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, her bills are her bills, and I will just say that it's not the same. It's like asking somebody what their house costs and thinking that someone's house...
And that's like during a heat wave. Be interesting to get an update in 3 or 4 months' time. Anyway, the show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. We have the Daily Telegraph, back to work drive shelved until 2025. Excuse me. The Times, mentally ill to work from home in benefits revamp. The Sun, I've had my fill of holly. iNews, NHS staff told to watch out for concrete danger signs. The Metro, what a fine mess. And finally, the Daily Star, the great fool of China. Those were your front pages tonight. Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Cressida Wetton, and the absence of Lewis Schaefer. We are back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Josh, Lewis Schaefer and Darius Davis. That'll be an interesting show. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Otherwise, thank you very much for committing this part of the evening to GB News. Sleep well, and I will see you again next week. The best. Good night.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. As we go through the next 24 hours, some of us will have a bit of low cloud and fog overnight, but then it's the return of the hot sunshine tomorrow, albeit with the chance of a few showers. Looking at the big picture, and you can see high pressure dominating the weather across the UK, but we are going to have something of an easterly wind pushing its way in, and on that easterly, we're going to drag in some low cloud, some sea fog in from the North Sea, affecting eastern parts of England and also eastern Scotland, where we're likely to see a little bit of drizzly rain overnight. Elsewhere, further south and west, clear skies, a few pockets of mist and fog though, and temperatures not dropping a huge amount. Some places staying above 20 Celsius tonight, a tropical night for some, but a difficult night for sleeping. A cloudy start then down the eastern side of the UK on Wednesday, but that low cloud, that murk, is going to quite quickly burn back towards the coast for most of us. I say for most because across eastern parts of Scotland we're likely to hold on to some of that low cloud. Otherwise, lots of sunshine around, but perhaps a bit cloudier for some, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland. Look at those temperatures though, a little bit higher than today, likely to see highs around 32 or 33 Celsius. Into Thursday, and there's the chance of some heavy thundery showers making their way northwards up the western side of the UK. More central and eastern parts of the country are likely to stay drier and sunnier, and temperatures are going to be similar to tomorrow, really. Again, likely to see highs of 32 or 33 before something perhaps cooler by the weekend.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.